He came to be a great symbol of strength at a time when we needed it, and nobody was in the hot seat any more than the man we came to know as the Bear. It was near the end of his military career when he got this job in Tampa 2 years ago to oversee the operations of the United States Central Command that had already been involved in a conflict in the Persian Gulf in the early 80s. His command presides over the most volatile piece of real estate on the face of the earth, the oil-rich Middle East, 18 countries of Europe, Asia, and Africa, where 3 of the world's major religions have their roots. He had been sent to Saudi Arabia to dig in and defend it. But the tide changed months later when he was forced to shift gears and prepare war plans for the invasion of Kuwait and Iraq. When I sat down with him at his headquarters in Riyadh 2.5 months before the war, he was hoping Saddam Hussein would look around him at the Arab world that was lining up against him, at the massive Allied force that was building up to fight him, hoping Saddam Hussein would understand the Desert Shield was not a political show by America and the free world, but a genuine build-up for war, if it came to that. General Schwarzkopf wound up commanding the largest force since World War II, more than 540,000 men and women. The Gulf War lasted 42 days, and President Bush declared a ceasefire 4 days after the ground war began. Saddam's army was destroyed and tens of thousands of Iraqis killed. It cost the lives of 137 Americans. And now, after homecomings in Tampa, Washington, and New York, as the conquering hero tried to adjust to peacetime and adulation that poured in from across the country, this 4-star general is just a few days away from retirement, preparing to say goodbye to those who served him and served the cause of America both here in Tampa, at MacDill, and overseas during the war. We are assembled outside Hangar 3 here on the flight line at MacDill Air Force Base. You see troops here assembled representing all the branches of the armed forces, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines who took part in Operation Desert Storm. A service not represented here today is the United States Coast Guard because it reports to the Transportation Department. This is a Defense Department show here today for General Schwarzkopf, who is now reviewing the troops with General Hoare, giving him an opportunity to, and that's his chief of staff in the center, General Robert Johnston, whom we got to know in Riyadh, the man who led the transition from MacDill Air Force Base to Riyadh for the United States Central Command. General Schwarzkopf is no doubt thinking many things right now, wrapping up his distinguished duty in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and also 35 years of service in the United States Army. He came away from Vietnam a disappointed man, like most veterans were. This war has a way of putting together emotions that many of us needed after such a disappointment and basically a humiliation in Vietnam. If fate has really handed this man, General Norman Schwarzkopf, a very exquisite deck. He has, of course not himself, but he has symbolized in many ways for us a recouping of our dignity after a military disaster that we had in Vietnam, or political disaster more to the point. This one gives him an opportunity to retire as a military hero and as a political hero as well, because this command, unlike any other of the actually 10 commands, this one gives the 4-star general who's in charge, the SINC as they call him, the commander-in-chief, an opportunity to work directly with sultans and sheikhs and kings of all of these 18 countries of the Middle East. This ceremony takes place many, many times in a man's career, as one general or one colonel or one captain changes his command and passes it on to his successor. But this one is so extraordinary, of course, because of what General Schwarzkopf has come to symbolize, what the war has come to symbolize, what our involvement in Iraq means and has meant to all of us, even though there are many unanswered questions about Iraq. I found it interesting that among the 53 generals and admirals who are here, that there are 6 high-level representatives of these countries in the Middle East for whom we fought. The United Arab Emirates, the ambassadors from the UAE, the ambassador and the son of the King of Jordan, King Hussein's son, that's Abdullah bin Hussein al-Talal, the Saudi Arabian ambassador, whom we pointed out to you a moment ago, ambassador from Qatar, that's Qatar, and it's the CENTCOM folks in the Middle East pronounce it Qatar. Yemen and Bahrain are represented by official dignitaries here today.
This ceremony certainly does have historical precedent, doesn't it, Cecil?
Yes, it does. What we're seeing really are ceremonies that go back perhaps 500 years. We've watched the generals troop around the soldiers there. That is, they're inspecting the sort of circumstance that the soldiers are in at this time, and Schwarzkopf, by marching around them, has approved their condition.
Cecil?
Pretty soon he will take up his place in front.
Cecil, can you hear me?
No, John, I don't believe Cecil can hear you.
All right, well, then I will explain it. The United States Central Command actually has no troops. He is inspecting troops which are symbolic of those which he can call up and which are at his disposal. There are about 700 people who are normally assigned to the United States Central Command and General Schwarzkopf, but at his disposal are all the forces of the United States if he needs them. And about 2.5, 3 months into Operation Desert Shield, the buildup toward the war, General Schwarzkopf said, I want everything we have. And he got it.
The
colors are going to be presented now to General Schwarzkopf and General Hoare. It was General Hoare, by the way, who set the time for this ceremony. General Schwarzkopf set the date. General Schwarzkopf will continue to live in his quarters here on the base for another 2 weeks when he retires, and then General Hoare and his family will move into those quarters, which is a lovely house not too far away from here on the flight line. It doesn't take him a minute to drive over there. I spent some time here this morning walking around talking to some of these officers who I left in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia before the war began, and I said to one general, General Robert Johnston, the Chief of Staff, I said, General, you look great compared to how you looked the last time I saw you. When I was in Riyadh in October, there was a high degree of concern because we weren't ready for an attack should Saddam Hussein actually invade Saudi Arabia. That was our fear at that time because we needed much more equipment in there than we had at that moment. On the podium there, as pointed out a moment ago, is the Secretary of Defense and General Colin Powell and his wife, and General Schwarzkopf's wife, Brenda. General Powell's wife, I think her name is Alma. General Powell became the youngest officer ever to become chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and of course the first black. You're watching excerpts from our live coverage earlier this week of the change of command ceremony for General Norman Schwarzkopf. We'll continue with newsmakers in a moment.
International callers know what they want.
Something disappointing happens when you try to get a hold of your closest friend in Paris and the call doesn't go through. Hello, AT&T? Yes, I want to switch back.
I wanted my sister's new number in Manila. I had to call AT&T. Is this AT&T? Good. I want to come back.
When I call my folks in Ottawa, I expect it to go through right away. Is that too much to ask? As for the big savings I was supposed to get? Where? I think I'm missing something here. Like AT&T. Yeah, AT&T. How do I switch back?
Call now, and you can come back to AT&T quality, speed, service, and low prices for free. It's never been easier to get the kind of international calling you deserve.
I came back to the low prices I get with my Reach Out World plan. I can talk to my brother in Toronto for just 18 cents a minute. I can save even more when we talk longer than 10 minutes.
For low prices to over 50 countries and areas, you can't get better value anywhere than with the AT&T Reach Out World plan.
I came back for the service. Good AT&T service. And a great low price.
You know, it wasn't any one thing. I had a couple of problems making long-distance calls.
And I told him, you know, you don't have to put up with this. We'll just switch back to AT&T.
As an international caller, you know what you want. So come back to AT&T now for the quality, the service, the speed, and the low prices you want for your international calls. Call 1-800-533-6208 now, and we'll switch you back to AT&T for free.
By authority of the President, General Joseph P. Hoare, United States Marine Corps, assumes command of the United States Central Command, MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, effective 9 August 1991.
This is the command flag of U.S. CENTCOM, and it will make a little pass from the Sergeant Major to the General. Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney is now authorizing the change of command, passing the colors on to General Hoare. The command now belongs to General Hoare. They will return to their seats and swap places on the podium up there. It's done. General Joseph Hoare is now the SENC, the United States Central Command. And General Schwarzkopf is almost out the door.
The Distinguished Service Medal is awarded to General H. Norman Schwarzkopf, United States Army, who distinguished himself by exceptionally distinguished service as Commander-in-Chief, United States Central Command, MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, and Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, from 23 November 1988 to 9 August 1991. During a period of unprecedented global and regional upheaval, General Schwarzkopf provided the leadership and vision necessary to reshape strategy, plans, and the military relationships between the United States and countries in the United States Central Command region, which paved the way for movement into a new era. His inspiring leadership directly contributed to the overwhelming success of United States joint combined operations in Southwest Asia during Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. During this, the largest combined naval, ground, and air campaign conducted by the United States military since World War II, General Schwarzkopf guided combat forces, including those of more than 25 coalition countries, to total victory over Iraq. These contributions have been of great historical significance and immeasurably advanced the United States objectives in the region. The distinctive accomplishments of General Schwarzkopf culminate a long and distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect the highest credit upon himself, the United States Army, the United States Central Command, and the Department of Defense.
John, this is Cecil in the studio. He's getting the Distinguished Service Medal. That's interesting. That's his 4th grant of that particular
General
medal.
Schwarzkopf is also being presented with the Distinguished Service Medals from the United States Army, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and United States Coast Guard.
Recognized by all the services now who served under him under Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield. He has already 3 Bronze Stars, and
he has a Master Parachutist badge. He has the Combat Infantry badge, the Defense Superior Service Medal. He has 2 Purple Hearts, which is the nation's oldest, plus 3 Silver Stars in the Legion of Merit.
John, as you mentioned, General Hoare has now taken the position next to Secretary Cheney as they have switched places as the command has officially passed over.
Secretary Cheney, General and Mrs. Hoare, General and Mrs. Schwarzkopf, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, members of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, men and women of CENTCOM. With the traditional passing of the colors a few moments ago, one warrior turned over to another the responsibility for this great, great command. A little over a year ago, few people outside the military or outside of Tampa, Florida, had ever heard of CENTCOM. Now, one short year later, the whole world knows you. They know you because of the story of victory and courage you have written in the sand, skies, and sea of the Persian Gulf. It's a story that will not be forgotten by the people of the region who placed their future in your hands when aggression struck last August 2nd. They are now secure because of your determination and your sacrifices. It's a story of the profession of arms, especially American arms. America's armed forces have been criticized as lacking in ability and leadership and having bad equipment and a variety of other faults. Today, America's armed forces stand on a pinnacle of respect and admiration because of CENTCOM. It's a story of friends and allies willing to stand shoulder to shoulder to defeat a tyrant who now only tyrannizes his own people. It's a story of bold political leadership from our president, our secretary, our Congress, and our allies. And it's a story of a wonderful new love affair between the American people and its armed forces. And above all, it's a story of American men and women in uniform, willing and able, the best and the brightest of the nation, men and women of whom we are all so very, very proud. The whole world now knows about CENTCOM. The whole world is grateful to CENTCOM. And the whole world knows its commander, who led it with such distinction, and who now takes his leave from CENTCOM and from his beloved Army. You heard the citation a moment ago, and there is little I can add except to say this. Norm didn't join the Army last August 2nd. For more than 34 years before that, he has served his nation in war and peace as a hero, without fame, without press conferences, without deserved adulation. In good times and bad, he never lost faith or sought another path. The nation is blessed to have had General Norman Schwarzkopf in her service. He represents the millions of other Americans who have served in even more troubled times. Americans such as Norm's predecessors who are here today and who fought to build this fine command. General P.X. Kelly, General Bob Kingston, General George Christ. And the nation is also blessed to have the service of families such as the Schwarzkopfs, Brenda's service and the service of Cindy and Jessica and Christian represent the very best of the American military family, and we are very, very grateful to them as well. On a personal note, I'm really going to miss my buddy Norm. I'll miss the daily calls. I'll miss the debates, the disagreements, the agreements, the jokes, the laughter. I'll miss the shared adventure. I'll miss the sharing of anxiety, of pain, and finally the sharing of relief. Norm, it's been my honor to serve with you, and I'll miss you very much, my buddy. The nation is equally fortunate, and CENTCOM is fortunate, that another warrior is standing by, ready to lead CENTCOM into a still challenging future. General Joe Hoare is uniquely qualified to be the new CENTCOM commander. A distinguished troop leader, a combat veteran, a military intellectual, a former CENTCOM chief of staff, and above all, a great Marine. Joe and Charlie Hoare are a great team that will lead this great command with distinction and compassion. This ceremony marks both an end and a beginning. As Norm and Brenda end their service, we wish them and their family all health, happiness, and success in their new life. And as Joe and Charlie Hoare begin their stewardship, we welcome them and wish them and their family all success in this new phase of their career.
We'll continue with our coverage of the change of command ceremony for General Norman Schwarzkopf, as broadcast live on Channel 10 earlier this week. Back in a moment.
No matter how eloquent the orator, no matter how prolific the poet, no matter how lyrical the songwriter, no words can ever capture the emotions that go through a person's heart when he stands for the last time and hears the national anthem and salutes the American flag representing the country that he has gladly, proudly served for the last 35 years. All I can say is one last time, it's a great day to be a soldier. It's a great day to be an American. I also want to thank my coalition partners, my commanders. Some of them are here in the audience today. Again, a great team. We came in, we knew what had to be done. We never lost sight of our objective. And from the first day until the last, we worked as a team in accomplishing our great victory. I thank you, my friends, for your confidence in me and for your friendship and for your great military leadership. I couldn't leave today without thanking all of my friends in Tampa. Tampa's a great city, but never has Tampa been greater towards the military than you have been in the last year. Your support to our families in our absence was absolutely superb. In every way, you took our families into your hearts and into your homes, and you stuck with them, and we in the war knew what you were doing, and we'll never forget it. I said during the welcome home that we may have been the thunder and lightning of Desert Storm, but Tampa was the heaven we came from, and I just reiterate that again today. It is largely because of the last year that the Schwarzkopf family has decided to stick around in Tampa and work for several things, not the least of which I think ought to be a baseball franchise in this town. And now the family. I just want to publicly tell everybody what great kids I got. They did the most important thing. When everybody else called me General, they called me Dad. And I've never been prouder of you than the class way that you carried yourselves this last year. I'm so proud of Cindy and Jessica and Christian, and I look forward to continuing to be your dad in every sense of the word for many years to come. And Brenda. What can I say about Brenda? Anybody who's been with us since we've been married will always tell you that she's the class part of the Schwarzkopf family. She's the model of what every military wife should be, but never has that been more true.
than during the last year, when you gave so much of your time to other families who were in need, and never, never once hesitated to go out of your way to help someone else get through the crisis that was in hand. I'm so proud of you. I thank you. You're a class act.
General Schwarzkopf, H. Norman Schwarzkopf, whom we'll never forget, says goodbye to his troops. You've been watching excerpts from his change of command ceremony this week. I'm John Wilson. Thank you for watching, and good day.